Saturday morning.
Sam, welcome everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the March 28th meeting of Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners to order. Dawn, if you would please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Frank Denton,
Here,
Mr. James Ainsworth,
Present.
Mr. Darren Black,
Present.
Mr. Milton Gutierrez, Mr. William Clark,
there he goes.
Yeah, we got him. I heard it.
I did too.
Mr. Thomas McDonald,
Here,
Mr. Thomas Rice,
Present.
Miss Norma Yado,
Present.
Mr. Dave Yelovich.
I'm present.
We have a quorum?
Frank Denton, and I'm present also.
Yes.
We do have a quorum. Milton Gutierrez contacted me yesterday and has got a conflict, a business interest conflict, and was unable to attend. Board members, would you make a motion to excuse Mr. Gutierrez today?
So moved.
Motion to excuse.
Dave Yelovich, so moved.
Move.
Tommy Rice, second.
Who seconded?
Tommy.
Mr. Rice seconded.
The first,
Yelovich.
Yelovich.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, board members. Moving on to item number 5 with the chairman remarks. You will notice we've got kind of a hybrid meeting today. A combination Zoom meeting and in-person meeting. Some of you may or may not know that the chairman is required to be present in person in order to conduct a meeting, and so that's why I'm here. Mr. McDonald had business in Austin, so he agreed to appear in person. Also, the other board members are appearing by Zoom. 2 reasons for that. Number one, we have only 2 items to be voted on at this particular board meeting. So I don't expect or anticipate a robust discussion among board members. But the second and most important, you might find this hard to believe, but we're running out of money. We have not running out of money because of revenue. We're running out of money because of the amount that we were appropriated to spend 2 years ago. We're coming in on the final 6 months or few months of our legislative appropriations. We are not by any means troubled by that, and there's a very good reason for it. When we went into this 2-year biennium, we had 1 office right here in Austin, testing people with paper tests and 1 examination to do the practical exam. In the last 2 years, we have doubled our capacity to do the practical exam. So we're now operating 2 testing centers, 1 here, 1 in Waco. We've split our staff. We've got a lot of travel expense that we didn't have before in getting that new testing center in operation. So our appropriations did not anticipate that fast and quick move within this 2-year period. So therefore, we're still operating on the same appropriation of operating 1 center. So we were only appropriated a certain amount of money. We're going to make it, and we think we've got sufficient funds to do it, but every $1,000 helps. So to have a board meeting and even to reimburse our board members for traveling to Austin, costs a few $1,000. And if we've got 2 or 3 meetings, that's gets up to $10,000. So that may be the amount of money that we need to slide in under the wire. Furthermore, Kenneth and I have talked, and I asked Kenneth a couple of weeks ago to stop reimbursing me my expenses. So we're gonna hold on that also. So it got worse. We didn't get paid, but now at this point, I'm not even gonna get my expenses back for the travel expense and the hotels. But it's okay. It's perfectly okay. It's not unanticipated. You might expect when you start off thinking you're gonna have one center and you end up with two centers. You would expect the good news, and you'll hear it from Kenneth at the end of the meeting today, our revenue, this is not a revenue problem. It's a cap that the legislature put on us of the amount of money we're able to spend. When you look at our year-to-year revenue, we are, I think, unless it's changed, Kenneth told me we are 7% ahead of where we were last year. So we are a growing organization. We have picked up additional revenue. We just weren't authorized in the last legislative session to spend it. So all good. And we got more good news that I'll let Kenneth talk about when we get to the financial report. But things are looking extremely well to us on our appropriation request this year. We had a great, and that's part of my report, our legislative hearings. We were very well received both in the House and the Senate. And early indications from both, our appropriations are just sliding right on through, just exactly like we asked for it. So we anticipate a good outcome for our legislative appropriations going forward, which takes into account Waco. It takes into account starting a mobile testing unit that's going to go all over the state, and the construction of a new testing center in Harlingen, and the staff to report those. It was $1.8 million ask, I believe. Is that right, Ken?
It was a million, yeah, right around $1.8 million, $1.9 million.
$1.8 million, $1.9 million ask, which is about a 30% increase in our budget, and we have every indication we won't get every dime. So, and the reason we did is because this agency has performed. It's done what it was supposed to do. I am going to steal their thunder, but I want, when Lisa gets to the examination report, you're going to see that in the last year in 2022, board members, we gave 5,000 tests. Both when you combine the practicals and the written tests, we gave 5,000 examinations in 2022. The first 6 months of this year, of this fiscal year, which started in September, we have given 4,500 tests. So we're 500 tests short of doing in 6 months what we did in 12 months the year before. And to me, that's pretty damn good. Thank you, staff. And it's been a lot of hard work from our examination folks. We've doubled our capacity by Waco and here. Lisa and the staff have worked tirelessly to get all this computer-based testing, which gave easy access to it. And it's paying off big time. I think no one could argue with that success. To do in 6 months what you took a year to do the year before, I think is pretty cotton picking good, if I do say so myself. Even I didn't do anything, the staff did all the work. So I'm really, really proud of it. One other thing falling under the area of outreach efforts and interagency cooperation efforts. Board members, I would like for you to think about this. We have implemented a high school program and a trade school program. We've had communication with, I guess, several, I don't know how many it is, 25, 50 high schools who have indicated an interest in putting in this high school program. We know or have confirmation from at least a half a dozen that they are putting in a high school program. What we don't know is actually the way the program that they're put in works. We don't know what curriculum they're actually using. What we have approved is something the Texas Education Agency put out called a TEACS program. And I can't remember what that acronym stands for, but in my terms, it's what a student should know when they complete their curriculum. They should be taught this so that when they finish, they're proficient in this. It's an 8-page document in these tasks. My concern is that this just started. It was authorized the last legislative session and we started it, I guess, in September or something. So the schools are just in their first year. Those half a dozen or so that started are just in their first year. They're everywhere from Tyler Independent School District. It's a big school district that I have a high confidence in, to small school districts that are really small school districts. And I don't know what they're teaching. All I know is they claim that these people are going to have a teaching plan. So my concern is that in 2.5 years, when these students graduate, those that came from a less vigorous training program or curriculum might not be ready or prepared to take that tradesman exam. And it's not going to hurt us, but it's a disservice to the student that spent 2.5 years going through classes only to find out that they weren't prepared to take that test and didn't have the requisite skill. So what I am looking at, board members, and we won't go into a big discussion today because it's strictly in the planning stages. I think we should consider for lack of a better term, a certification program. Someone that when a high school says, yes, I'm putting in a plumbing program, or a trade school that's putting in a plumbing program under the authorization the legislature gave you, that we allow someone to certify, to actually go into that school, whether it be a trade school or a high school, and check off or determine, are they teaching a curriculum that gives a student the chance to pass that course? Right now, we don't have any idea what it is. All they is, we're going to put in a plumbing program. Well, that may be a great plumbing program, or it may be one that stinks. And that kid's going to get out of school and be lost as a goose in a snowstorm. So the only way I know to assure that student is going to get a good education is have a certification program. So board members, what I would like to get your input on or thoughts about, and I have made some preliminary talks with Texas State Technical College, TSTC, of possibly allowing us to enter into an interagency agreement. If you might remember, we have basically gone to TSTC. We have approved their curriculum. 3 of our plumbers, Ron and Robbie Janos, who was here before, and who was the third plumber? Oh, I tell you, it was not on our board anymore.
Robbie Jonas.
Robbie Janos.
It was Ben.
I'm sorry, yeah, Ben, that's exactly who it was. So we've sent plumbers up to TSTC and have met their instructors, and we've gone through their programs, we've looked at their books and their training. So we're comfortable that they are actually providing a good baseline education for a plumber. I am considering entering into an interagency agreement with TSTC to provide that service for us. When a high school indicates to us they're going to put in a plumbing program, TSTC would dispatch someone to go over the curriculum that they're teaching to ensure that it meets the requirements of the plumbing board. This curriculum is ours. We are not putting TSTC in a position of making any decisions. Those decisions will come from the plumbers and the plumbing board. So maybe sometime between now and our next meeting, I'm going to ask the plumbers on our board and possibly a high school CTE instructor that we have got confidence in to go to TSTC and let's explore this opportunity of a certification program. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if TSTC is going to be the one to do it. The only thing I know is for the benefit of the student, I don't want them to go through a 2.5-year program and not being prepared. What I do not want to do is put so much on a high school and so much reporting responsibility that it's a deterrent for them to start a program. I want it to be easy. I want it to be smooth. Just nothing but just basically check off what they're doing. What are the qualifications of their teachers to make sure they're proper? Have they got a plumber involved in the program? Verify that. And if they meet all the requirements that were laid out in the legislature, then they're certified. I do not want to turn into a TEA. That's going to require a bunch of monthly reports and stuff like that. I do not want to do that. Board members, do you support that idea, or are you opposed to that idea, or do you have a better idea?
Frank, if I may, I don't have a problem with doing that, but I thought that was the issue, and that we took, and especially Robbie, spent the time to get a proper curriculum from TSTC, and then we were informed that it had to be approved by TEA. So, I mean, thought we went down this road once.
Well, we did, but Ron, I was informed, and just this past week, talked to the guy that's in charge of CTE for the Texas Education Agency. They don't approve curriculums. They're not in the curriculum business, that I was told. That's developed and determined by the local school district, and we don't get involved with curriculums. What we get involved with, and this is TEA's talking about, is outcomes of the students. Do the students have the requisite skills to attain this? But they said the curriculum is totally up to the high school. It's not up to them, nor are they interested in getting into the curriculum business. So somebody's going to have to do it. TEA is not doing it. And since we're the ones that are giving the test and we're the ones that are issuing the license, I don't want a bunch of young students taking superfluous courses that are not good courses. I want them to take a good, robust plumbing course and learn plumbing while they're in high school. And the only way I know to ensure that happens is to get someone to certify that, yep, they're meeting the program. They're teaching this, this, and this, and they've got a licensed plumber involved in their program, and the student should have an opportunity to pass that test. Does that answer your question, Ron? Or
Yes, I understand that. And just a reminder, when we take a chance, we were going to say a prayer today.
I'm sorry. A matter of fact, I had asked Ron to offer a word of prayer. Would you do that for us right now, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we should do this. Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you today in humility and faith. We thank you for all you have given us and the blessings in our lives. Give us guidance and strength as we advocate for the plumbing industry and residents of Texas. Give us patience and understanding to the matters we face today and the future. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Mr. Chairman,
You see
Dave
how bad
Yelovich.
I do when you guys aren't here, you see how bad I do.
I think Dave wanted to say something.
Dave,
Well, you got Justin to your left, you know, he could keep you in line.
well, but he got here late.
Oh, well.
Traffic, Dave.
I was going to add to the discussion. I truly believe that this is a good idea. Maybe it's an unforeseen thing that we, didn't see coming. But in my line of work in home building, the National Association of Home Builders has student chapters in many, many, many colleges and universities across the country. And they have curriculum that prepares young people to be construction managers. Based in Dallas, Texas, is the the group that is in charge of visiting all these universities every few years to look at their programs to make sure they're in line, kind of like the way the chairman is discussing here for plumbing. It would not be very much out of line to do something on a smaller scale here in Texas, to where we had a group, and I like the idea if we can kind of partner with somebody that's kind of used to this. But I would offer to communicate with those folks in Dallas if we wanted to at least get an outline or kind of, the program that they go through to certify curriculums and schools to be in the construction industry, but also then scale it down into the plumbing industry.
That's an option and one certainly that should be considered. And I'm not stuck in stone on TSDC doing the certification. The only reason that they came to mind is number one, they're a state agency. And it'll be easy for us to enter into an interagency agreement with them. Number two, they already have a curriculum that our plumbing board has already approved. And it's free of charge to anybody that would like to use it. So it seemed to me a natural. If you look back, there are high school, it's not unprecedented. And I've talked to a couple of CTE teachers or program directors at high schools. And they say it's very common to have a certification. They have certification programs, ASA certified mechanics. ASA comes into the high school and checks their curriculums and checks their teachers. And when they graduate from high school, they're auto mechanics, ASA certified. So it's a similar type program I'm talking about, but I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that I perceive it's a problem. Board, you may say, no, it's not a problem, just let it go and don't worry about it. But I am concerned that kids are going to spend 2.5 years not getting the proper training in order to have the best chance to pass the test. But at the same token, I don't want to create a bureaucracy on a TEA that's going to make a bunch of high schools say, forget it. I don't want to get in that program. So, yes, sir, Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Mr. Chair. I think TEA at one point was actually in the curriculum business, and it was such a mess that the legislature took
Got
that
them out of
away. So I think they are actually statutorily prohibited from doing that, which kind of leads into my question, or comment and then question. Comment is I definitely think we need some kind of quality assurance, quality control on these local high school programs. Because otherwise it's a waste of the students' time, it's a waste of the high school's time. And then ultimately, I mean, it's a waste of our examiners' time if these people are going to show up and flunk the test, right out of the gate. So I definitely think that's important. My only question is, are we allowed to do that under statute?
I think we are. Lynn's going to look at it. Again, it's all in the planning stages, and that's certainly a consideration that we'll take a look at. I believe we are. I'll say this much, the guy that wrote the bill says we are. I talked to him last week.
That's
And I told
legislative
him-
intent.
I told him what we were thinking about and what our concern was. And he said he thought it was a great idea. So I don't know if the language of the statute allows it, but I don't think we're gonna get any pushback from Matt Schaefer, who I spoke with last week.
Okay.
But Lynn, that's a part of the program. I think Lynn and I have talked about that. And my greatest fear is I don't want to be a bureaucratic oversight type agency that the schools are gonna say, oh, no, here comes the inspectors again.
Well, because then we disincentivize.
We do.
The schools
Exactly.
adopting the program in the first place.
It's a real fine line, and I've talked with Mike Reeser, the chancellor of TSTC, about it, and I've shared my concerns with him. What kind of brought all this about, and I've always been concerned about it. But this week, I'm meeting with Lone Star College in Houston area. They are interested in putting in a plumbing program. And have mentioned to me, well, maybe your board members could work with our curriculum people and we'll develop a curriculum. This summer, we're going to Collin County in Dallas, who are interested in putting in a plumbing program. I anticipate the same thing. We, quite frankly, are not in the education business. And once we have approved a curriculum with one group, that ought to be enough. And we'll let that group certify that has met the minimum criteria. And I'm told Chancellor Reeser, I do not want to dictate this is the only curriculum. If they want to add every bell and whistle known to man in addition to this, it's going to be a minimum criteria, not necessarily the criteria. So he gets it and he understands it. But I anticipate as this program grows, Lone Star's got 100,000 students. Lone Star College has got 100,000 students. It's the largest community college in Texas. Collin County has got a robust community college up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But I just see getting pulled in a lot of directions that we don't have the resources, nor do we have the expertise. I've learned a long time ago, I don't speak education language. They speak in a language that I have no idea. They use terms that I don't even know what they're talking about. It's worse than plumbing. I didn't know anything about plumbing. I'm learning a little bit about it, but.
Oh, you're a plumbing, sure.
Well, I've done it. An educator I'm not, and I don't speak education language, and I want somebody that does speak education language having and it may not be TSTC, I don't know. Board members, any other comments, before we move forward on this?
This is Tommy Rice Jr., and I just want to make sure that we don't disincentivize any programs. I think adding a certification and making the certification optional is a great goal. And if TSTC already has an approved curriculum that is producing people that are passing the test and using that as a benchmark to set the certification, are you suggesting that somebody from TSTC go to every single school district and inspect their programs, or have the program administrator come to TSTC and present their curriculum?
I would suspect they would dispatch someone to the campus to look at their material.
Okay, I think that would be good. Anything, I mean, we all know that teachers are overworked and underpaid and don't have enough time or resources, and requiring them to go to Waco or go to a location to spend a day away from work that they already probably don't have enough time to teach their students is probably a big ask. So anything to increase the numbers of these programs and then the number of options for students to have another pathway to success, even if their program isn't up to standards, these kids are still way ahead of where they would have been had they had no training before getting out of school.
Yeah. Anyone else? Board members have a comment? I will be contacting the plumbers on the board to see your availability to maybe meet with Chancellor Reister and his folks to explore this further and talk about some of the things the questions that you've been asking, and how would this work and how would that work. And hopefully we can get this done before our next board meeting and we can give a further report on it. We don't have a timeline on it, but it's something I think is needed to ensure consistency and quality in our education programs. And Lynn will check the legal authority we have to enter into these agreements. Anyone else on that subject before we move on?
Mr. Chairman, I would just echo your sentiments. I mean, I believe everything we're doing at this point with TSTC kind of makes them the forefront of being that agency that would facilitate this program for us if their willingness to do that. But so not adding a whole lot more to what everybody else has already said, you'd have my complete support of following through with this and moving forward with it.
Well, board members, it will always be our curriculum. It's never going to be somebody else's. It'll always be the plumbing board's curriculum that we have approved. And it'll put us in a position where we're not having to jump all over the state, working with high schools and community colleges, looking at different curriculums. We'll have one organization say, yep, it meets the minimum, and it may exceed the minimum, but we'll talk about it somewhere. There are probably a lot of questions that we haven't even thought about right now, or options that we don't know about, but I want to move in that direction, and I'm not hearing any opposition from board members on doing that. So stay tuned. We will move into that direction. Town hall meetings, we haven't had any, and we had several legislative meetings, and Lynn's going to give us a report on some hearings that were held on some bills having to do with plumbing. And this might be a good time to remind the board members that as plumbing board members, we are not allowed to lobby for or against bills that are pending before the legislature. That doesn't mean we don't have an opinion, but we're not allowed to get out and lobby our legislators for or against a bill, even if we think they're the stupidest thing that ever happened on the planet. If we get asked, and sometimes we don't, Lisa and I sat in a hearing for half a day yesterday, or not last week, on several plumbing bills, and we never got asked our opinion on it. There were a few industry representatives that were there that weighed in on it, which I appreciated. Not as many as I thought might have been there, but we did have representation. So anyway, just to remind the board, if there's a bill pending, refrain from lobbying, because we're not allowed to do that. Only can act as a resource. Moving on to item number 6, report discussion agency initiatives to deter unlicensed activity. I'm going to make a comment. We're not going to vote on it today, but this issue of direct supervision has generated a lot of comments from the plumbers. Not as many as I thought it might be, but some comments. I would say most of which are opposed to it. But when I look at the unlicensed activity subject, and I don't think there's anybody in Texas that doesn't think that unlicensed activity and these outlaws that are going around, these handymen doing plumbing work, is a problem for the industry. And many plumbers are not going to agree with this comment, but our industry gave that business to them. We created a niche or a void in the marketplace that we were not able to fill because of the shortage of licensed plumbers. So consequently, those handymen and outlaws fill that void for us. And the only way that we're going to push them out is if we take their business back. So in large part, this direct supervision, which would allow virtual supervision for apprentices. And I know all the arguments against it, and I respect and understand them, and I've read every single comment about it. And I respect the opinions of the plumbers. But it is another way that we can take that business back from unlicensed plumbers. There is a plumber out there, a responsible master plumber out there running one truck, working his tail off 6 days a week in a small community. And if he were allowed to make a decision to allow an apprentice to go do a job, a minor job, then that would expand his business, it would increase his revenue, and it would take away from that guy that's a handyman or an unlicensed plumber. It's a way that we can increase our footprint in Texas. Some of these days, because of these high school programs and trade school programs, we are going to be flush with tradesmen. Tradesmen is going to be the new bottom rung of the ladder at some point down the road. And until that time comes, we have got to fill the void that we created when we couldn't reach those people that had plumbing issues. So you may not like it, and I understand why you don't like it, and I understand there are people going to take advantage of it. But I have a little bit different opinion. I believe that the vast majority of responsible master plumbers are good, ethical business people. And the question of qualifications, who is capable of changing a flapper in a commode? That decision should come from the plumber, not from the state. So what this does, it shifts the decision-making from that state to that responsible master plumber. It's not a rule. It's absolutely, there are a lot of people that think it's crazy and I'll never do it in a million years. And guess what? You don't have to do it. But there may be that single plumber out there that's struggling to keep up, and this handyman and unlicensed people are eating his lunch. It gives him an opportunity to expand his footprint and serve more people. And whether you agree or disagree, it doesn't take a master plumber to change a flapper in a commode. I think that there is an apprentice that can do that. And on top of that, it's gonna have virtual supervision. And I would further say, those that are worried about the outlaws of the dishonest people, guess what, folks, they're already doing it. They're doing it all over the state of Texas. We catch them every day. We've got 25 that we've caught and are penalizing right now. So this allows a responsible master plumber with a plumbing company to expand his footprint and try to take some of the business back. And again, board, we probably even have some disagreement from the board members, and we'll have a full and complete discussion on this when we get around to voting on it. It's not going to be today. So if you're thinking it was, you're wrong, because don't get your information off Facebook, get it off our website. Get your information from us. Because it's not on the agenda to vote on, but it directly affects unlicensed activity. We have got to take that business back that we gave away as an industry. And in order to do that, we've got to expand our capabilities. That's my thought process. Although I want to get into discussion on it. Board members, any comment, or you want to reserve them until we have the issue before us next meeting?
Ron Ainsworth has a comment. Or several. There are a lot of things to unpack in what you said. As far as losing business to handyman, I don't care how many people we license or supervise, that's not going to stop. There are people that are looking to save a service call and find Joe Blow to do it for nothing. So no matter how we handle this, I think we have no effect on the unlicensed activity. We have to continue to pursue it, turn it in. I've turned some stuff in that I've seen to Mr. Davis, and I think, that part of it. Yes, we have made a very big focus on getting more people in the trade. We've done that. The numbers don't lie. We have this program where you say we're going to get a lot of tradesmen. But the meaning of apprentice is a meaning of apprentice. And yes, he can go change a flapper on a toilet, but he doesn't have the experience if he runs into something else. While you're here, I'm smelling gas, and he goes up with a freaking lighter looking for a gas leak. And that's an extreme example, but I do not think an apprentice needs to be on doing work for the public without in-person supervision.
Okay, and that's, I understand and respect that opinion. I guess where I disagree is the person that is the best judge of the capabilities and responsibility of that employee is the responsible master plumber, not me. You know him, he's your employee. You know whether or not you're going to feel comfortable sending him on a job or not. You know whether he knows his limitations. I don't. I think we're going to have to start evaluating people's capabilities based upon their individual skills and minds instead of a calendar. 2 years to make you eligible for a tradesman doesn't make you a smarter person, unfortunately.
But I have a comment to that also. If the best judge is the responsible master plumber, why do we have a licensing program at all?
Because you have the minimum skills to get a license. It doesn't make you a good plumber. I've heard, we have some comments that, oh, it's going to destroy my license. I believe that a person has value because of their skill and their ability and their knowledge, not a 25-cent plastic card. The card only says that you've got the minimum skills to become a tradesman or a journeyman or a master. It doesn't say you're honest. It doesn't say that you're a good plumber. It just says you have the minimum skills to do that. And I understand all arguments. And again, Ron and board members, reserve some of this because we're gonna have a complete discussion. And you'll have all the public comments. We'll let the public comment on it before we vote on it. So it'll all be done out in the open and everybody's gonna, but the only reason I'm mentioning it, in part, this program is it falls under deterring unlicensed activity. And I don't disagree with you, Ron. I don't think there's one thing that's gonna deter unlicensed activity. I think it's a multitude of things. But one thing I know, if we don't have responsible plumbing companies that have even got the ability to do those jobs, that niche is there. It's a void that's gonna be filled by somebody. And it's gonna be filled. And I think an apprentice working for a responsible master plumber, the consumer is better protected by an apprentice under virtual supervision working for a responsible master plumber who is accountable for that job. The consumer is better protected by that person than some handyman that is accountable to no one that doesn't even have a company. Choosing between those two, I'll go with the responsible master plumber and an apprentice. Let's move on unless somebody else wants to make a, we can.
Mr. Chair, just a comment or a request, I guess. When we do take this up, I would really like for us to do that in an in-person meeting.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
There's a lot of strong, diverse opinions on this, and I think it'd be a lot easier to hash it out in person.
We'll do. Did everyone hear that? Are the board members able to hear his comment? The request is that it be in person, and I totally agree. I think it's going to be a robust discussion, and I want to have one, and I think it'll be good. And I'm the eternal optimist. The product we end up with is going to be a good one. I love diverse opinions and ideas, because generally speaking, when you have that, you end up with a good product in the end. So, anyone else before we move on to item number 7? Okay, well, I know there's a lot of people that have got a lot to say, but thanks for holding it until we get to that subject. Item number 7, legislative report, the Lynn Latone.
Yes, thank
Lynn,
you, Chairman.
take it away.
Lynn Latone.
This will be found under tab 1 in
Yes,
your board books.
Lynn Latone, General Counsel. I'll be presenting item number 7, 8, and 9 on our agenda. Item number 7 is a report on our legislative efforts. We wanted to give you an update as to our appearances and our monitoring of the 88th legislative session. The legislature asked the board to appear at the Senate Committee on Finance on February 15th and the House Appropriations Committee on February 23rd. Executive Director Hill and Chairman Denton appeared on behalf of the agency to provide testimony and support for our legislative appropriations request. We had earlier submitted our information as requested, and in preparation for the appearance, we additionally prepared a legislative packet of material, and you will see that under tab number 1. The material informed the legislature as to our accomplishments over the last 2 years, including the highlights of our implementation of House Bill 636 from the 87th legislature. Our efforts under the leadership of the board and our executive director were very well received. We had a lot of positive comments. We do not have any future expected appearances. However, as the chairman mentioned, the legislature may always call on our staff to be a resource of information on any relevant bill. That said, we are monitoring bills on Texas Legislature Online that may affect our agency or the industry in case we're called. We're following suit as many other agencies are and posting a list of active bills that we're monitoring on our website. At the end of tab number 1, you will see a print screen from our webpage listing active bills. Anyone interested in more information on those bills or any other bills can go to Texas Legislature Online to find out any information on what's going on at the legislative session. I will say of note, one bill in particular, and again, these are just bills. These have not passed. These are just bills. One bill of note is Senate Bill 659, which extends the existence of the agency from 2027 to 2033, subject to the sunset review. one of the comments I heard when we went to appear at Senate Finance was this agency is a success story. And that was followed by many other positive comments. And if I'd say 1659 is an endorsement of that success. We hope that the rest of the session is going to give us some more resources to help us continue that success. I know Kenneth is going to speak some more about that when he gets to his agenda item. And that concludes my legislative report. And I'm going to move on to item number 8, which is tab number 2 in your material. We wanted to go ahead and give you an update on the rule efforts that we have pending. What you're going to recognize in your material is the chart you've seen in other meetings, and it's a chart, basically the roadmap of where we've been and where we're going on the rule efforts we've made since 2021. Right now, we have 2 outstanding rule efforts. One is the med gas rule at 363.9. And the other outstanding rule effort is the series of rules that we have made at 361. Particularly of interest, it appears, is that comment has been received on the provision addressing direct supervision. The med gas rule was published for public comment in the Texas Register on February 10th for 30 days of public comment. That comment period has now closed. The 361 rules, which includes the direct supervision definition amendment, was published February 28th, and it closed yesterday. We have received those comments, and as the chairman mentioned in his comments, that we will be considering those rule efforts at a later meeting. All the rule comments, according to the procedures of the APA, will be presented to the board. Those comments will be addressed by the board, and any rule considerations or actions that they take will follow the procedures in the APA, and those will be considered at the meeting they choose to discuss those rules. I will also make you aware that we have submitted the 361 rules to the Governor's Office of Regulatory Compliance. I'm going to refresh your memory. The rules are subject to review by the governor. We have submitted those rules. You can't submit the rules until they're published in the Texas Register. So we have submitted those to the governor's office. They have informed us that they have up to 90 days to review them and provide their response to that review. In the past, they have worked with us more quickly than 90 days. They've informed us you were there in session. They have a lot of demands, a lot on their plate right now. They're going to give us the highest level of service that they can and get us back their review as quickly as they can. The rules will be subject to the governor's recommendation, and we will consider that at the meeting. And that is the update on the rules where we are, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 9, and this is tab 3 in your material. This action will look familiar. At our last meeting, we readopted the rules at 365, subject to our 4-year rule review that we've been marching through as we've been doing our review of all of our rules. Today, we are considering the readoption of the rules at 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 367, in accordance with Texas Government Code 2001.039. Under the Texas Government Code, Section 2001.039, a state agency is required to review its rules every 4 years to determine if the reasons for adopting or readopting the rules continues to exist. The review will look at each of the rules to determine whether it is obsolete, whether the rule reflects current legal and policy considerations, and whether the rule reflects current procedures of the board. A notice of intent to review Chapter 367 was published in the Texas Register for 30 days of public comment. No comment was received. The board reviewed each of the rules in 367 and determined that the reason for adopting or readopting the rules in this chapter continue to exist. The rules are still essential in implementing and enabling the statute of the board, and the rules provide details not found in statute but are necessary for the operation and function of the board and the implementation and operation of the program. The board may propose amendments in the future to update, clarify, supplement existing rules. Any future proposed changes to the rules will be published according to the procedures in the APA, and will be published in the Texas Register as we have done all of our rule efforts, and will be open for public comment before final adoption. The agency asked the board to consider today a motion to readopt the rules in Chapter 367 in their entirety and in their current form, and conclude the rule review of Chapter 367 in accordance with Texas Government Code 2001.039.
Is there a motion, Mr. McDonald?
This is Justin. I move that the board readopts the rules in chapter 367 in their entirety and current form, and concludes its rule review of chapter 367 in accordance with Texas Government Code 2001.039.
Is there a second?
Darren Black, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And if I may have a second motion to allow the chairman to sign any action today on behalf of the board with his signature.
This is Justin. I'll make a motion to allow the chairman to sign. Say that again, Lynn.
On behalf of the board.
Sign on behalf of the board any action required through this board action.
Ron
Second,
Ainsworth, second.
Ron seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Here you go, Lynn, sign.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn, does that?
Started signing before the motion was.
No, I didn't finish.
You didn't finish
That's
signing.
right. Is that all, Lynn?
That's it. We're ready to
Lynn.
move on.
I want to tell you, the agency and the public, Lynn has really been a remarkable addition to our staff. Lisa and I have talked, I don't know how we did this before you got here, to be honest with you. So anyway, thank you for all your efforts. She wears lots of hats. She right now does the certification program for our high school program. She's the point person to give them all the information. She does all of our legal work. She tracks our bills. And she and Ollie do an outstanding job. We really appreciate it. So.
Thank you.
We're gonna, before I turn it over to Lisa, I want to make the public aware of a little bit of a change in the agenda. Item number 11, our financial report, is going to be moved to item number 14, which was public comment. And I'm going to take public comment before the financial report. Then we'll do the financial report. And the reason that I'm doing that is so that those that wish to make public comment don't have to stick around. We've got an executive session that we're going to conduct after the financial that's going to last 30, 45 minutes, maybe. So there's no use in you having to wait around to make public comment. So I'm going to allow the public comment before we go into executive session. Then, of course, we'll reconvene. You're welcome to stay, but most people don't. But you're welcome to anyway.
Chairman, could we take a break?
It is 11 o'clock. We've been going for an hour. Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 10 after 11.
Yeah, because I was gonna. An endorsement that needs CE. This is the class that they would take if they didn't take it initially to obtain the endorsement. And so you've got to bear in mind that right now an apprentice that's moving up the ladder towards a tradesman's got to have at least one CE class. Eventually, all of your apprentices will have had the apprentice class. Once they get to where they're going to take the residential in the ocean, the remainder of their 24 hours. So it will be a portion of their 24 hours eventually. It's going to take a while to turn all of those around to it.
Right now, if I'm an apprentice and I have an endorsement, then I'm required to take CE.
Correct. To read
Will
it.
this apprentice training program take the place of that CE?
That's correct.
Okay, so not in addition to, it's in place of,
yeah.
but it's broader. It teaches more than just what that endorsement.
Yeah.
CE might cover.
Yeah, and as a reminder, right now, they're doing they're doing a paper training affidavit to get an endorsement. And
Right.
we grade and we handle that paper affidavit and we upload it to the system and we clear the system and say that they've had that training. And this is gonna eliminate it because it's gonna come electronically and clear their application to show that they're qualified.
How many continuing education providers have indicated they're going to put together one?
3 so far, but I expect the rest of them are coming. It's all coming together. As a matter of fact, I think even Johnny said something about putting one together last
I think
time
it's
he was
important.
here.
Especially if we're talking about an apprentice doing some service work. It might be nice if that apprentice had already been through your training course.
And the other thing that it's gonna eliminate is it's gonna eliminate, hopefully, a tradesman that's going to a journeyman having the same class to meet those qualifications and get the 48 hours. Right now, they can take 2 of the same 6-hour classes, and that's part of their 48 hours. Those that are gonna be coming in as we move forward will have had the apprentice training class and a regular continuing education class. And hopefully, some of the providers I've talked to feel like putting all the apprentices in a class by themselves, they'll be more open for discussion and the things that are
Those that are
applicable to
willing to
them.
take the class, it's gonna be a class full of sponges.
Yeah,
They're gonna just soak it up, I feel. If they want to choose plumbing as a career and they're apprentices, I think they're gonna soak it up like a sponge.
and you'd be surprised right now, we do get a lot of those training affidavits that when we grade them, they're failures. And it's unfortunate because the intent of that when it was originally built was that they would sit with someone and be training and learn those particular items that were put together and they don't always pass it. So,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track.
no, it's fine. I got a lot of stuff to tell about, but I know we want to condense, so. Let me make sure where I was. Okay, so in our outreach program that we're continuing to develop in outreach and education, we're trying to put as many updates on the website as we can. And if anyone's had a chance lately or needs to direct someone to it, we now have the information about fingerprints in Spanish on the website, so you can choose Spanish or English. And we think that that's going to help a whole lot as we start putting the stops on any application for fingerprints. So we're doing really good. A lot of people just jumping out there and getting it done. But we wanted to put it in Spanish so it's more clear for those that might read that more easily than the English. So that's on our website. We've got the rules posted up there. We've got some new links that Kevin did and all of the legislative stuff out on the website. So, and as soon as we get all this done, we're gonna get a new website. Maybe September. We'll see. If Kevin can ever get it all done.
You have other stuff to do.
That's what I told him the other day. I said, I thought you didn't have anything else to do.
That's very true. And we've done some outreach to principals. I think we sent out 60 some of those. We've only gotten a few comments back. And so that's kind of building on the program of here we are, we're here to help you. We can, if you want to reach back out to us, we're here as far as the high school programs and the ones that they're going to build and that sort of stuff. So we continue to work on that on a regular basis.
Kevin, we sent out, Lisa, that news release announcing the JET program to all master and journeyman. Do you know the numbers, Kevin, off the top of your head? How many of those were we sent out and how many people opened it?
Not off the top of my head, but I can
Okay.
check.
I think
It was a fairly high percentage.
we
If
sent
I
out like
recall.
65,000 and asking them to deliver them to their high school district. And I think we had 20% open or 25% open rate.
I think a lot of the, master plumbers are doing a little outreach. I really do.
I hope they are. Because we can't let up on that. We might even consider doing it again.
Yeah. We've also been doing what we can afford to do right now, and with the limited staff we have, we've done several events of late. And the enforcement department, because we don't have everyone employed in our outreach and education division at the moment. So we're still stealing from the enforcement department, but we took our backflow demonstration and, went to Taylor Career and day that they had. As a matter of fact, Chairman Denton also attended that one. I hope he enjoyed it. We're training him to maybe be a plumber sooner or later. I don't know, we're getting there. So it was well attended and we enjoy doing those kind of things. If someone has a event that they would like us to go to, we'd certainly be happy to. They called it a Trades Day and Career Fair program that they had. It was Williamson County Expo Center. I think there was about 200, I believe they were 8th graders. We also attended the Building Professional Institute conference in Houston and had probably 150 inspectors come by and visit, and there were lots of people and lots of training going on. We had our newest field investigator there, which is Mason Roy, and we introduced him several months ago, and so that was his first appearance at a Building Professional Institute, and I think he did well. And we've got an event coming up in Collin County on April 15th, I believe, and we'll try to have as many people available as we can at that event. So a lot of stuff going on. Make sure I cover all Steve's. Also, I included in the board documents, the chart with the numbers of the licensees as well as a breakdown of each type. And I'll tell you, our master plumbers continue to grow. When I ran this a few days ago, no, Dawn actually ran it. We put it together. I'm gonna give Dawn credit. We're almost at 8,500 responsible master plumbers. That's just the most we have ever had. I mean, it's crazy. So that's 8,500 responsible master plumbers, 8,500 certificates of insurance. It's just a growing
Good problem to have.
problem, if you want to call it a problem. But yeah, it's a good one. The state has got, I mean, that's the most plumbing companies we've ever had. So it's pretty exciting. Anyhow, but we're at 76,775 warm bodies in our plumbing population. When I came here, there were a little over 20,000.
In the
Warm
last year,
bodies.
we've added 3,800 additional people in the plumbing industry.
It's a
In
lot.
2 years' time, we reported that to the legislature.
And bear in mind, we're still handling it with basically the same amount of staff.
And Lisa, you skipped over, how many, you talked about the 8,500 responsible master plumbers. You told me off the record, how many that are not on the list that you did this month?
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. And I don't have it included in my examination report because it is part of next quarter's reporting. But we just got finished doing 200 master exams in the month of March.
That are not reported in the numbers today.
There were so many, and we're trying to get to that point where we're going to transition to the computer-based test. And so we're wanting to get them done, but it's impossible. And so we got to take a little break from masters, catch up the journeymen that need the shop work and move those guys and gals on through. And then we'll hopefully be at a closer point to transition some of these back over on computer-based. But the one thing I did want to point out with all of this if you're preparing to take that master plumber exam, it is most important right now that you study or take your prep class or whatever it is you're planning on doing before you put your application in and before you get here. You don't want to get stuck where you've got two parts you need to come back and take, because you're gonna end up taking the whole thing over again. And that 30, 60, 90 days is set in stone. You fail, you wait 30, 60, 90, and it gives you time to study. My recommendation is to study before you make the application. So, a lot going on.
It's no longer put in your application and then wait 6 months to get a date.
Yeah. And,
So be ready.
on that note, right now, if you can send in the application after you've got everything together, it's really helpful. Do your fingerprints first. Check yourself on the website, see if you've gotten your fingerprints, see if it's showing fingerprint obligation met. Do everything that you can do before you submit that application. If you send it in and it's only partially completed, it goes over here. If it's complete, it can just move right on through. I just can't emphasize that enough. But there's only 24 paper applications that haven't been processed. And so if you haven't heard from us when you send a paper application in, you were probably missing something. And when we get time, we'll let you know. But we're gonna keep moving on the ones that are complete and move those right on through. There's 27 online apps that came in as of last night. With something I didn't mention, but with the loss of little Lisa to our staff, she moved to another agency. We're down to Blanca, and Blanca's able to keep those processed, but that's not all of that job back there. There's a lot to it, the scheduling and all those things to keep up with. So the more complete you can make it, the better off you are, and the easier it is for everybody. We all wear a tremendous amount of hats. And you may talk to me, you may talk to Steve, you may talk to GW. There's not a job. None of us say, oh, that's not my job, let me give it to somebody else. We just do the job, whatever it is. That's the position we're in right now. And we're a big agency, but we still have a lot of qualities of maybe the smaller place, I should say. Anyhow, just wanted to bring that up. And along with that, speaking of numbers, there are, and not to preach to the choir, but we had 707, right now we've got 707 different exams scheduled. Okay, we did 200 of those masters, and many of those we did in Waco, so we have plenty of room. But of those 707 right now, almost 28% of those are retakes. That's not a good number. So, and those are scheduled out into mid-March, or I'm sorry, mid-April. God, I wish it was still March, but into the middle of April. And right now, when we get everything else processed and scheduled, if you haven't been scheduled, it's coming. It's like I said, losing little Lisa was kind of a blow to us, and she went to another agency, and they're paying her a lot of money, and she's worth it. Wish her well on it. Anyhow, but so we'll probably be scheduled out we could probably schedule all the way to mid-May right now. That's how full it is. So it's a lot of people, a lot of demand. Anyhow, and you made mention, Mr. Denton, earlier about the number of exams that we have given. It is it's a lot. But something that I wanted to bring up is the pass-fail rate continues to hover right around 71%, 71%. And we know that's a good thing. And so We're at 4518 for the exams we've given this year so far. And it'll be very easy to surpass last year. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Board members? Questions on the examination portion or anything else for Lisa? I think you'll all agree that's pretty good numbers. That's pretty remarkable improvement over year statistics.
Mr. Chairman,
And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Lisa, when are we looking at coming on with the master computer-based testing? Did you say?
We would kind of shoot for May, but we've actually, and one of my next topics here, I'll go ahead and roll them all together. We've pushed the computer-based testing on the master out a little bit further than what we wanted to. It was our highest priority. However, with the loss of staff, the scheduling is an extreme burden. And so we took what we've been calling phase 2 all along, which is the scheduling of the practical, and we're automating it. And so the automated and the ability for someone to schedule their own practical exam is going to come up before the master exam does. We've got to get the burden of staff scheduling off of us and let it become an automated process. So right now, an individual picks out their day to take their written. Once we get this next portion of the program up, they'll get an approval and they'll pick their day, you know, based on what's available. There's going to be a little calendar and you'll pick out what's available, and they'll schedule themselves for the practical exam. Once that goes online, which we hope it's going to this, I don't know, I'd say in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're hoping. We're working on it right now.
That's gonna be huge. That's
it's
gonna
gonna
be
be
another one of
huge.
those huge deals.
And then we'll flip back and push the computer-based master back up. So I was trying to shoot for my birthday again, which is May 17th, if anyone's forgotten that. And so it may be the latter part of June. We'll see.
Let's go with May 17th. That will.
I know that sounds good, but
You did it last year. You said we're gonna be doing all computer-based testing on May 17th, and sure enough, you did.
yeah.
And I have utmost confidence in your ability to do this.
I appreciate that, sir. I really do.
You know, I'm telling you, this is really gonna be huge for the agency, because it's kind of the peripheral problems that we have is, and it's a valid complaint, is our ability to respond to phone calls and emails and things like that. I'll bet you 50%, if not greater, of those calls and emails have to do with scheduling exams or rescheduling. And once we allow a person to schedule their own exam, you don't have to call me, just go online and schedule it yourself or cancel it yourself. So
And the
that's gonna be huge.
rescheduling is a real issue. What happens is we get the application, we process it really quick. You get your date for your written, and then or you don't, you're not ready or whatever. We schedule them here for the practical, and they call and say, you know what, I'm just not ready. And they want to reschedule, and that's fine. We'll reschedule you. You tell us a good ways in advance. But the deal of just not showing up, that is really hurting.
Or calling a day before the exam.
Day before is not gonna work unless it's something of what could be deemed an emergency. You know, proof that your car broke down, death in the family, those sort of things, childbirth.
You know, this
We
is
understand.
anecdotal, but yesterday when I got here, there were a group of tradesmen hanging around the parking lot out front, so I stopped and visited with them. And I asked them what they were taking. They were taking a tradesman test. So I asked them, I said, well, how long did it take you to schedule your written exam, your computer based?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, these are young folks. that are computer savvy. They said it took us about a month. That, you know, we got online and in there about a month. Passed it the first time. I said, well, then how long did it take you to schedule to come here to take your practical? They said about a month. Wasn't anything to it. So I know it's anecdotal, but it's kind of nice. When I first got here, I would hang around the parking lot talking to these folks. I've been waiting for 8 months to get here, you know, just complaining like everything. So I know it's anecdotal, but I know it's working because spot checking people every time I come, I like to go back and talk to them and what's difficult for you and what's working for you and what's not. And I can just feel it. It's just better today than it used to be. And it's all because of Lisa and the staff, the work that you've done. I mean, it's 100% of it.
We're about worn out.
Well, I know. You're gonna get Sunday off. I can't take Saturday off. You'll get Sunday off.
I know,
So
but we're making a lot of headway.
you are, and I tell you, don't think it's not appreciated, certainly by the board. And I think the industry also.
And I'll give you another example. I addressed a call earlier this morning and I looked up and I said, golly, we so hard to call up there and we need to change the date and it's taken us since October to get this inspector and so on and so forth. Well, application came in, then the fingerprints came in. Then the exam went out about a month. Then the next month, the exam was taken and failed. The next time, the 60 days later, the exam was taken and failed. So we're down to just one part and here we are. I think it was the 10th and the individual passed. It just takes time. And if you're not ready, that 30, 60, 90 days is going to extend you. It's cut in stone and it's there for a reason, because if you failed, you need to study. So it's either study, and do it the first time, or know that you're going to have to abide by the 30, 60, 90 failure process. So, and so from October to the end of this month, that's how long it took. But
They took the test 3 times.
yeah, but things happen. So, and it happens a lot. But one of the other new things, and bear in mind, all this takes coordination between our database and our computer people and our website and all these different working parts. But with one of the last updates to our database, I had said that we're going to be able to send out deficiency letters. Well, Dawn tested it Saturday. We played around with it again yesterday, and we've got a few little kinks to work out in it. But whenever you sign in and look inside your account now, you'll be able to see a page, and it should go up probably in about 2 weeks. It should be available. But you'll see at the bottom after you log into a web page, and I've got this document, we'll send it out to the providers. But remember, first off, let me back up. We're talking about signing into your account, not going over here looking up a public thing. You're signing into your account, okay? And then after you sign into your account, you're gonna see down at the bottom of it, there's gonna be a secure mailbox. That secure mailbox, you can select it, and inside of it, you'll be able to see your letter that says, hey, you're missing your birth certificate, you're missing this, your schedule letter. But the other part of it is, and this is the part we tested and we're really hopeful about it, is we can run the letter and click on email and email it right to them. So there's going to be 2 places now, 3 if you call, but don't call and look at the email. So it's close to working, and we've been working on this for about 6 months. Bear in mind, this is a program that we share with 7 other agencies. And so this is our part of it, and they've about got the customizations that work for us in the program. So we're really excited about that.
The frustration about all that is most people are just like me. You have to be spoon fed. What Lisa's talking about putting in that deficiency letter was already available to them. If they'd gone to their own account and looked at it,
Yeah.
they would see what they hadn't done. But this is a summary. just like I'm the world's worst about it. Somebody's got to tell me exactly, I don't want to have to dig it out, tell me exactly what I need. So,
Yeah, you did have to dig it out before. It was there, but you had to dig it out. Now we're gonna have it like right up there. It's gonna tell you. And as we move through, we're gonna have a lot of different letters on there to tell you stuff.
so
So
that's a great thing. And it's a good, all of this though goes again toward cutting down on the phone calls and the email requests and things like that. High phone volume and email are not the problem. It's a symptom of a problem. The real problem is they don't have the information. So as Lisa and Dawn have worked on this, if we can push that information out, the phone volume and the email volume is gonna come down because they won't have to call, they won't have a question. So,
but some just like to call, and that's okay. I think I've got 500 of them on here, so whatever. But I'm always happy to talk to anybody that I can, and I might not get to you real quick, but I get there sooner or later. We want to make it as easy as possible. It makes it easy on us too, but you know, snapping your fingers and saying, "Oh, I wish it did this." It doesn't happen quite that way. Anyway, any other questions on exam or scheduling? I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'm going to do Steve's stuff really quick.
board members, questions on exams or?
We've sent Steve off, so
Yeah.
it'll work.
Police is gonna give the enforcement department report also, so if there are no questions on the exam portion, Lisa, you can go ahead and move into the enforcement one.
And this kind of ties into the fingerprints and the review and the approval of applications. But there were 120 that had to be manually reviewed this prior quarter. And 51 of those were approved, so not too bad. Out of that, during that review process, 10% of them, or 13, were revoked. And in most cases, the revocation was due to us finding out that they were previously incarcerated. And they just happened to get out and want to get their license back, and there was nothing to work from, so they had to start over.
And Tommy, this is further evidence that just because you have a criminal conviction or it doesn't mean you don't get a license. There's a process in place. The vast majority of those are going through, and just a small portion of them are getting revocations or denials.
Yeah, a
So
little
I know that was
40%
an issue for you early on that you asked about, so it showed that it's working.
The other thing it has brought forth, is when we're reviewing complaints, those complaints include complaints that staff actually develops as well. And some of those, have to do with past criminal convictions that they forgot they had. They were found during the process of, fingerprints. And during the 168 cases that got reviewed, 95 penalties were imposed this last quarter. And out of that 95 penalties, 12 of those were false information that had to do with prior convictions that someone forgot about. So it's, it's there. I mean, you are gonna, I would assume you want to forget some of that stuff, but
Yeah.
It's, just tell us about it. Let's get it over with in the get-go.
Some of them just think they can slip through too.
They do. And actually, I've got one right here that texted me and said that he just realized he forgot. So I gotta check on that one, but it happens. But tell us if you realize it, because we're gonna deal with it right then and there. Don't click yes and then no on there. We also have some statistics that the field department puts together. And remember I said Mason Roy, he started in October, so Mason's numbers might not be as high as the rest of the numbers as far as contacts in your board book, and you look at their activities, but they've been very busy. They've been out on 2,812 job site compliance checks. So, and that was during the quarter of also investigating all of their complaints. And you'll see all of the field investigator names listed and what they've done and who they contacted as far as investigations. And 165 of those were, involved in investigation of a complaint. So they may go on a compliance check and then do a complaint and another compliance check. There's also a board order of administrative penalties. And as a reminder, these administrative penalties are the result of the complaints I mentioned earlier. And these are penalties where the individual agreed to it and has paid. And you'll see that the date that the case was developed, the individual's name and the penalty, and it's already paid on the side there to the far right of the report. And this is an order that Mr. Denton also signs for the board. And
After we get a vote on it.
after we get a vote on it, and if you want to look to the very last page, there are the repeat violators. And unfortunately, there's a couple of pages of repeat violator. Well, it's not a full page. I take that back. Yeah, it is. Of previous violations. There's actually 2.5 pages of previous violators. And those previous violators are denoted in the order with an asterisk. For instance, the second individual on the board order, Mr. Martin there, has a previous violation that's listed in the report in the back. So, any questions on those?
One thing we skipped over, but I want to point out, there are 35 cease and desist orders that I've looked through, and every one of them have to do with unlicensed activity. So we're still ramping it up, the unlicensed activity issues. Board members, are there any questions about the board order of administrative penalties that the list here for Lisa?
There's a bunch of them this time.
There's a lot. It's a big list.
And those go hand in hand a lot of times too, on the cease and desist. It's a good idea to have the cease and desist on an unlicensed individual as well as have the penalty. And it makes for a historical document of the events.
Questions, board members, about any of these cases, or? If there are no questions, a motion would be in order to approve the board order of administrative penalties that are paid by agreement and authorize the chairman to sign on the board's behalf. Is there a motion to that extent? Mr. McDonald makes the motion.
And included in that motion is not only approval of the administrative penalties, but also authorization for the chair to sign on our behalf.
Is there a second?
Tommy Rice, second.
Mr. Rice seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, board members. Lisa, anything else, or are you done?
I think I'm done. Always happy to answer questions, but I've got pretty far down my list.
I believe, let's do this. Dawn, do we have any online that are wishing to make public comment?
I'm asking right now.
While she's doing that, let's take a 10-minute break. It's 11:50. Let's reconvene at 12 o'clock. And when we do, we'll start taking public comments. And from public comments, then we'll go to our financial report. From our financial report, we will go to our executive session, which will last about as long as the board wants to talk. I would suspect 30-45 minutes. We'll reconvene and discuss future meetings and future agenda items. So let's take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 12. The gang's all here. It's 5 after 12. And we'll move now to public comment. And Dawn, let's start with the ones who have been sitting here in person. So who do we have on?
Mr. Johnny Curtin.
Mr. Curtin,
I get to go first, huh?
good to see you.
All right. Good to see you. I'm Johnny Curtin, to those that don't know me. But just to make it as brief as I can. Lisa mentioned a minute ago about the different ways to find out your deficiencies. Let me add one more to that. They call us. And we get those calls all the time of, deficiency. What do I need to do? I can't get off the plumbing board. But we find out, we let them know, we work with them. So that's another route that they go. They call us quite often. But on the other end of it, I also want to thank Lisa. She's not in here, but I want to thank Lisa for getting us information. And Lisa, I'm just thanking you for getting us more information out there for the providers as much as we can to keep everything going. So when they do call us, we'll have the answers. And that's great. I'm glad y'all doing that. But the comment that I wanted to make was on the definition section down there. I've made a comment in writing, but since you didn't take it up today, I'll make a little more of it. A couple of things that come into play when you start doing this. I noticed a difference of definition of a license, which now includes a license endorsement or a registration. So a registration is a license if you pass that and change that. So you would have a licensed person if you had a registrator on the job, which kind of throws a kink in the license. Why would you need a tradesman license if you have that licensed person out there as a registrar? So that would cause a little bit of a hiccup. And supervision on the job, yes, but training on the job is more important. And if we don't have some kind of minimum qualification for training on that job, somebody's there with them to train them. I understand if we can limit it to residential service, okay. But when you open it up wide open to any apprentice anywhere to do whatever, as long as they're under some kind of virtual supervision, I can't agree with that at all. That's getting out there where you're looking at somebody trying to tell whether they tighten the toilet bowl down, tight it up. Or if he over tightened it, he breaks it. But how can you tell that by a video? That's not good. To understand your apprentice, yeah, okay. But let's kind of push it back and let them do maybe service work or something, but not open it up to everyone. I don't agree with that. The other thing that I wanted to mention, maybe you meant to do this, maybe you don't, I don't know. But when you go to the fee schedule back there, you're eliminating the fees for an endorsement for a med gas, a fire sprinkler, a WSPS endorsement. But you're not eliminating the fees for an RUI or a drain cleaner restricted. And I was told, well, those are registrations, they're not endorsements. But if you go back to the definition of an endorsement, it says that is an endorsement. So those are endorsements as well as the other endorsements. Why don't we eliminate all the fees on all of them, or put fees on all of them and let's go ahead and pay the fees instead of making the apprentice pay, who is a low guy on the end, and giving the journeyman master a break on their deal, because they make more money than that apprentice does. So let's give them a break and work with them too. So anyway, that was my comments. Thank y'all for allowing it and appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Curtin. Appreciate your comments. Dawn, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. John Mata.
Mr. Mata.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. John Mata, Senior Director of Field Services for the Atmo Group. First, I'd like to commend the chairman and board members for the work y'all done with the plumbing industry. We appreciate y'all standing up for us. We all know our motto, protecting the health of the nation, and we darn sure want to protect the health of the Texans. And Lisa, thank you for all you do also. Well, I'm here to speak in favor of 363 and 363.9 on the med gas. I know we're just we're going to be voting on it in the future, but if anything we can do on behalf of IATMO to help facilitate this and move this forward, be sure to call them with the resource. And also, I heard about your education that you're talking about with TSTC and other programs. We want to offer our resources, their educational resources to help with that also. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Don, anyone else?
Yes, Miss Mary Conger, online.
Okay, Miss Conger, can you say something to make sure we can hear you?
Hello there. Hope everybody's doing well. I just want to show y'all a picture of my students right quick. I'm up here at North Lake College. And so these are plumbing students.
She has to turn on her camera.
Turn your camera on.
Oh, yeah. Would y'all like to see them? Or here, there.
Wait.
These are North Lake College plumbing students. So this is actually the first board meeting that they've attended. So that's been pretty cool for them. First, I just want to thank Lisa for all that she does and that she makes a huge difference. Just with the little questions that we ask as providers, we don't ask for favors. That's not it. I just had a deaf student that had some issues, and he had a check that was lost in the mail. And Lisa, on a Sunday, took care of it. So I don't think she gets enough credit for that. And she
That's no big deal. I answer new stuff on Sunday all the time.
Well, you know what? I'll start sending that to you, Chairperson Denton.
You can, I'll just forward it right on to Lisa. That's gonna do what you do.
Okay. I do want to thank everybody. I believe that we're moving in the right direction. Thank you, Chairperson Denton, especially Tommy Rice and Chairperson, I'm sorry, and Board Member Ainsworth for their comments. I really do believe that that does mirror industry in the virtual direct supervision. And I do have a few concerns with it regarding when it was rolled out with the winter storm. I do feel that we, there were statuses that are thresholds that had to be met. Of course, one of which they had to have a test date, or they had to have an endorsement on their registration, or as Johnny described the definition. And so, I do believe for a short period of time that was successful. I believe that the way that the new rule is written, it is wide open for interpretation. And yes, you're right. Most companies are doing the right thing. What are our numbers? 99.3% of plumbers are doing the right thing. So I believe the majority of RMPs are doing the right thing. But there are those, that aren't. And so that is a huge concern there. Have you thought about putting a poll out to all of the 8,500 RMPs? Maybe in an email blast to see exactly where they would stand on that as well, because we definitely want to vet this and we want to, look at it with a fine tooth comb before it is moved forward. Also, I just wanted to let you know that we are developing a Certificate 1 program here for the tradesmen at North Lake College, which is Dallas Colleges, formerly known as Dallas Community College District. And we're a pretty large district too. So that will begin in the fall. We're awaiting SAC's approval, and I don't think there's any issues. We've answered every question that they've asked, and we are using the NCCER curriculum. So that's just something for you to have in your back pocket. And then lastly, I want to touch base. Would love for us to providers to have the old training that we used to have pre-COVID. That would be amazing. Or if we could get together, have some training, please come on board and, we do this together. I think that would be really beneficial for providers. And I'm done, and I'm going to hush, and my students are going to tell y'all, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Mary. Dawn, anyone else?
No one else has volunteered, but we did have an email that I will send out to the board. That was a comment.
And do you know the name of that person without?
Yes, Mr. Bruce Baylor.
Okay, Mr. Bailiff sent in a written comment, and that comment will be distributed to the board members by email as soon as this is over with. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, thank you, members of the public, for your comments. Always, we appreciate your input. If we can't get into a dialogue or discussion having to do with public comment, it's not something we can do. But I will tell you this. One comment was made about you'd love to have additional training. There's nothing stopping you. Go for it. For the educators. There's nothing stopping you from getting all the training that you want. It's just not required by the state, so. Okay, public comment is over. Move now to our financial report, Mr. Bill.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kenneth Biddle. I'm the Director of Financial Operations, the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners for the record. So if everybody will turn to tab 5, if you're not already on there. First thing I'm going to go over is the FY 2023 budget as of February 28th. As the chairman said at the beginning of the meeting, our budget in 2023 is really tight, primarily because we're running a bigger footprint operation with 2 exam centers. And then I don't know if our board members were aware, but back during February and January, we had some IT issues. And we had some additional IT costs that we weren't planning on to get our network stable again. So that's incorporated in this. So these additional costs, in addition to our footprint size that we weren't planning on, that we've incurred in FY 23. As of February 28th, we've spent almost 52% of our budget and only being 50% finished the year. So that's kind of where you're seeing that we're spending a little more than where we should be at the moment. Like the chairman said, we are in the process of scrubbing our budgets and trying to identify travel costs and some other operating costs where we can cut costs to get in under the radar, I think, as he put it, or under the wire for the end of the fiscal year. So does anybody have any questions on the budget page?
Board members, questions of Kenneth, and it kind of relates back to why we're doing a virtual meeting this time. Save us a little bit of money, but it's going to be that tight. So any questions or concerns for him?
Mr. Chair, just a comment, and I can discuss this offline too, if you'd rather, Kenneth, but I was gonna be in town anyway, so I don't need to be reimbursed for this meeting either.
Yeah, and you know,
Thank you.
I did the same thing. But it's not mandatory and it's not a policy that we're not reimbursing board members. It's your own personal decision, what you do. Some of you live right here in town, so it's not a big expense anyway. But I have chosen not to receive any, and I'm here every week, not to receive reimbursement until we get to the end of our budget cycle and see if we've got any money left. If we do, I'd like to have it back.
And you can see that in our other operating expenses and our professional fees and services. You'll see our budgets are way up, our expenditures are way up.
It
That's
is
exactly what I was talking about with the new exam center and our IT costs. You'll see that in those 2 areas. They're just higher than they were last year.
But you know, I don't look at that as a bad thing. It's kind of like writing a hot check to your undertaker. I want to spend every dime that we have been allocated to spend on the plumbing industry. And I don't want to leave a dime left over to be swept into the general fund that I don't know where it's going to go to. So I'm all for writing a hot check to your undertaker. I think you ought to spend it and spend it wisely and prudently. And that's what we're doing. So,
Okay.
But I think to Mr. McDonald's point, when we get to an item such as this direct supervision thing, I do want to have it in person. Expense or no expense, because I think it's that important and there's that much of a diverse opinion on it that I think we would benefit from being in person. So you can expect that. We'll talk about that when we get to future agenda items, but Kenneth, go ahead.
Okay. The next page is, you're used to seeing this by now, is what our exam collections look like, and then our revenues by license type. Not necessarily the number of total plumbers we have in the state of Texas, but just the number of revenues by license type we collected and by exam type we collected. Right now, my total, if you go to the very last page, page 4, you can see the breakdown. My total examination, licensing, and registration revenues are up 7% year over year right now. My administrative and civil penalties are up 23% overall. And my overall revenues are up 9% year over year compared to where we were last year. So that's kind of how that works out. Our civil penalties are making up and putting us 9% where our licenses and examinations are.
My revenue's up too, Kevin.
Yours is up.
What a coincidence. 7%, same as yours.
Okay, you'll see where we're growing. You can look at the exam page and this page. You see we're giving more master licenses, we're giving more RMP licenses, more journeyman licenses, more tradesman licenses, and our big operating license types, we're giving out more of them. Where we're seeing a decrease right now is our journeyman examinations, because we're giving those at Pearson View. And that's gonna hit our revenue a little bit as we start moving more of those exams towards the Pearson View applications.
But for the board members' benefit, the revenue that we get off of examination fees is minute portion of our overall budget. I think it's less than 15%.
It's about 175,000 of a $4.5 million budget.
Yeah, so it's a small percentage of the revenue that we receive. So when we gave that to Pearson View, it didn't really hurt us. It hurts us right now because we're so tight, but in the long run, it's not going to substantially affect our bottom line. So.
And what the chairman was referring to at the beginning is we're capped by our appropriations, not by our revenues.
Right.
Our revenues are higher than our appropriations. What we're capped for is the legislative mandated this year appropriation. This is all you get to spend. So we're giving back $1 million or so every year to the legislature, the state of Texas, the revenues exceeding our appropriations. But we're going through the appropriation process right now, which is trying to decide what we're going to get for the next biennium for our appropriations to determine what we're going to be able to spend. Which brings me to my next point. Tab number 6. Our 88th legislative session update. So if anybody didn't know, we're right in the middle of legislative session right now. I've kind of put together a little timeline there of important dates for everybody and where we stand on some various things. So House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1 were introduced by the House and Senate Finance Committees and House Appropriations Committees back in early January. Some of our exceptional items were addressed in the base bill. We got our $50,000 for IT projects. Our staff are going to get salary increases. As of right now, the proposal is a minimum of $3,000 a year or 5%, whichever is greater. The executive director got a small pay increase. And then one of the things that we lost in our base bill was a criminal background analyst that we asked for an exceptional item for. Okay. And then the Senate Bill 30, which is a supplemental funding bill, our $48,000 we asked for an automobile, that is currently in that bill for determination of whether we get that funding or not. And that leads us to House Appropriation Committee and Senate Finance Committee. So back on February 15th, we briefed the Senate Finance Committee, and on February 23rd, we briefed the House Appropriations Committee. This last section, if you look at the very bottom of that page on tab number 6, the first page, you'll see this is kind of where we stand right now, what's going on. So House Appropriations met, they adopted what they're going to present forward for the agency. Their adoption was 6 additional FTEs and $715,344. Which was our first exceptional item. Senate Finance, as of yesterday. So item number 2 on the next page, that happened yesterday on March 27th. Senate Finance gave us 10 FTEs and $1.3 million approved and adopted. The one thing they didn't give us was we did get one, they cut us on 1 FTE for an examiner and one of our exceptional items to be exam center growth we're talking about. Okay, so the next steps in the process is that each one of these chambers have released their adoptions. We'll get a House bill and a Senate bill based on those recommendations, and then we go to Congress committee. That's going to happen somewhere around the 1st or 2nd week of May. Congress committee will take the differences on what House approved, the $715,000, and what Senate approved, the $1.3 million. They'll put them together. And they'll come up with some kind of compromise to tell us what we finally get. And then that leads us to the one outstanding item we had from our pre-legislative appropriations request that we didn't address at the time. We talked about it, but the building lease increase. and what that looks like and what that additional funding we're gonna be asking the legislature for. I'm gonna let the chair handle what we're gonna talk about on that as we go into a special session potentially. But we're currently working with Texas Facilities Commission to get what our bottom dollar is, after some of the proposals that we submitted by our landlord. And that concludes my presentation. Anybody has any questions on that?
You know, that's a great report, and the bottom line is if you take what the House approved and you take what the Senate has approved, that's everything we asked for with the exception of one thing.
Except one FTE.
One
Yes, sir.
FTE. We can't do much better than that, guys. And if you do a conference committee, all they have to do is just combine the two bills without any negotiations and we're home free.
Everything they agreed on, we're good on, you know, things they don't agree on, we'll continue to talk about. Yes, sir.
I mean, obviously, it's, you know, headlines all over the state that the state of Texas has historically record high revenues coming in this year. What, was there a rationale given for why they cut that FTE out?
No, no rationale given as
We
to
didn't
why
talk
they cut that.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I think they're gonna have more money than they know how to spend anyway.
But those historic revenues you're reading about don't really apply to us as much because we're a self quote unquote funded agency. We have to support our operations based on the fees we collect. It's not, we don't get general revenue from sports.
Well, but then turning that around, we put in more than we take out, so still that.
Right.
That still doesn't necessarily hold water. I was just curious on that and if there might be any possibility of getting that added back in conference.
There's always a possibility because the House moved it to Article 11, which is basically where they used to negotiate with the Senate on it. The Senate basically cut it. But the House has got an Article 11, which means it's still open for discussion and negotiation in the Congress committee. So we kind of have to wait and see where that Congress committee stuff falls out now. And then push it, and then if you got any of those political connections on either side, you start.
You know, the good news is the spot they're talking about, as I understand it, and I think I'm correct about this, is the unskilled position to help the examiner. It wasn't the examiner itself, or was it?
It was examiner, it was a
Was
program
examiner.
specialist position.
But it was for Harlingen.
Yes, sir.
So it wasn't anything that we were going to put together real quickly anyway. And by the time we get there, and who knows what kind of fund the situation is going to be in.
So we are fully funded for examiners here and in Waco.
We will be after we
the-
see if somebody's exceptional.
After we
items.
get it.
Now, after, how we decide to utilize the money in 24, 25, you know, based on the needs and based on our analysis of what we need in 24 and 25. They gave us, right now, Senate gave us 2 maintenance specialists. We can repurpose one of those maintenance specialists at the use to an examiner if we need to. It's kind of within our purview to be able to do that but the essential thing is getting the FTE authority and getting the funding.
The bottom line, Lisa and I talked about this yesterday. We have never been in a better position in the history of this agency since it was founded, what was it, 47? We have never been in a better position, both financially and FTEs, than we are today.
Well, I get that. I just want to get everything we can.
Yeah, we're done.
Back to your point about writing the hot check to the undertaker.
I'm with you.
You know, and it just seems to me, I mean, you know, last session, the legislature.
Well, you're greedy, aren't you?
Beat down on us, you know, with the priority of getting our examination queues shorter and shorter. And obviously, if we have more examiners, we can do that easier, so.
And this also doesn't take into effect any bills that have a cost estimate to pass. We'll have some contingencies based on bills that may or may not pass. I think the big bill we're looking at was a bill for insurance, tracking insurance, and bringing that right now. We think we had a fiscal note attached to that. So, you know, as some of these bills happen, and are passed, there'll be some contingency legislation that either appropriates this money or they'll just tell us to do something and not give us any money for it. So that's still to be determined.
Gotcha.
Any other questions for Kenneth? Good report, Kenneth. Good, all good news.
Thank you, sir.
Kenneth alluded to it, our building lease is expired. And it's prudent that we do this in executive session. So pursuant to section 55.072 of Texas Open Meetings Act regarding item number 11, that we go into a closed session to discuss the real estate negotiations of the lease of our building. So we will adjourn our meeting until after the executive session. And it is currently 12:30, and we will reconvene in executive session just as soon as we can get signed up.
Can you tell the board members to look to the
Just
chat?
1 second, guys.
Sorry, can you tell the board members to look to the chat for a link to the executive session meeting?
Okay.
That probably heard me.
I don't know if you could hear that, but Kevin is telling me to look to the chat portion on your screen, the link to the executive session. Is that correct?
That's perfect.
Okay. Everybody see it? A link there where you can link to the executive session?
Yes, Kevin, question, do we need to log out of Zoom to do this or?
Yes, please. Yep.
Kevin saying, yes, you do need to log out of Zoom in order to do that. Then how are they going to reconnect for the remainder of the meeting?
So they'll just do the same thing. They'll close Teams and reopen Zoom.
Okay, so when we finish our executive session, you'll have to close Teams and reopen Zoom to conclude the meeting. Sure Dave was going to make it back for the meeting. The board meeting is now reconvened in open session at 1:15. No action was taken by the board in our closed session. We had pretty well discussed, covered all the items on the agenda with the exception of the date of the next board meeting and the recommendation for future meeting agenda items. Let me take the latter first, the future agenda items. The comment period on our rules has closed as of yesterday, I think it was. So we have 25 comments concerning our rule adoption. Most, if not all of them, have to do with the direct supervision, as you might expect. Lynn, help me with this. Have these already been submitted to the governor's office, or they're about to be submitted after the comment?
rule, we don't necessarily submit the comments to the governor's office. We submit the rule proposal. The governor posts for themselves a comment period for 30 days. They receive their comments and then they consider everything in their considerations
My
of.
question is, do they already have them, or are we about to send them to them?
Let me re-answer this. We don't send them to the governor's office. Now, what we do is we send the rule proposal,
That's my question.
and we've already sent the rule
Okay,
proposal.
that answers my
Then the
question.
governor posts them for themselves, gathers
got
their own comment. Now, I will say that I will call the governor's office for status. At the time we did submit the rules, I said, if you have anything, we would like to see it. So I did submit some things, I think 4 comments at the time with our rule proposal because they requested it. When I call for status, I'm gonna say, we got more comments. Do you want those too? And the governor's office will tell me what they want and we will do that.
Okay. With all that being said, I would suspect our next board meeting, notwithstanding anything on the lease, would probably be the end of May. Does that jive with everyone? Sometime between the 15th of May and the 1st of June?
We just need to work around any holidays or anything else.
I'll offer the caveat, that's the end of session. The governor's office, again, has been very amenable to work with us on a less than 90-day basis. They let me know that they are very busy. So if we look aimed at mid-May to end of May, that's right at the end of session. So keep that in mind.
Is there anything that says that we have to wait on them in order to move on a rule?
No, and I'll let you know if you did go to a moment where you wanted to consider a rule that had not received the governor's approval, you could do whatever you wanted to do in the rule consideration pending the outcome of the governor's determination.
And then if it's contrary to what we did, we'd have to revisit it at that time.
Then we'd come back to the next meeting and go, this is what the governor said.
With all that being said, go ahead,
I
Justin.
was just gonna say, I think, even if we don't end up picking up those rules, I think we'll probably have enough other business to act on by the middle to end of May that we probably still need to leave. Not sooner.
The only rule that appears that anybody cares about is the direct supervision rule. So, I might or might not put it on the agenda the next time. I'm gonna reserve that thought until we start putting together an agenda, but I would expect a meeting of the board to occur before the 1st of June. I'll put it to you that way. Most likely between the 15th and the 1st. And of course, we'll let you know if that particular subject is going to be on the agenda, as well as let the public know. But we might have to have some type of Zoom meeting or some type of get together having to do with this lease situation for executive session, and we'll figure out how we can communicate to you to do that. But anything else on the board what's on the agenda? Ron, am I saying you?
Yes, quick question. The public comment portions, can we get those prior to the board meeting, or is there a place we can go out?
Absolutely, we will. Well, yes, absolutely.
Will y'all send those out, or do we need to go get them?
No. We'll distribute those to all the board members.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything else? All right. Well, with that being said, I don't know of any further business that we have to do. Thank you, board members. I hate Zoom meetings, but I hope you understand why we did it. We're trying to save a buck or two.
Real quick, can you just ask Tommy if he was able to hear what he needed to hear, because he was having some sound issues?
Kevin is asking me, Tommy, were you able to hear all of our discussion here? Tommy? I see him, but I don't hear him.
Well, his issue was he wasn't able to hear us.
Okay.
So he probably doesn't hear
Yeah,
us
he's
calling.
muted,
He probably didn't hear.
but he's muted now.
You know, even in Tommy's absence, we've still got a quorum
Yeah.
here, so. I'm gonna go ahead and conclude the meeting unless someone else has another agenda item they want to discuss, so. It's 1:21, and we'll call today's meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.